everyone, it's Tris. So unfortunately this week we had a little bit of a technical hiccup and I lost all of the recordings of my parts of the conversation. So I'm going to do my best to stitch together the rest of the episode and hopefully it makes sense and you still enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in and I will see you next week. Bye!
Hi everyone, we're back with the second episode of A Bit of Chiptune, a podcast about chiptune. This episode we have a special guest, Star.
Hi everyone.
So Star, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, well, I'm Star. I'm a chiptune musician. I'm in a couple of groups. I'm in Famous Slackers, Elite Bit Agents, and Real Family Tracker Hours, as well as Kirby 25. And I'm relatively unknown, but, that's okay. I just do it because I like doing it. And I'm hugely into the Master System sound chip, which is kind of overlooked in the community for two reasons. One, the Master System's kind of a obscure console. Not really too many people care about it. And the other is that the sound chip itself isn't really as versatile as, let's say, something like 2803, which is the Nintendo sound chip. But, I like being challenged, and I think it's fun. I really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when you came over to me and you said that you want to do an episode on the Master System, because I remember in the first episode, when we were defining chiptune, we were specifically talking about the NES games, like Mario, and when you bring the Master System into the equation, it's the second episode, we're already kind of expanding the definition that we created.
Yeah, it's weird because when people think about 8-bit games, they immediately think about the NES and the Game Boy, but the Master System's usually not really brought into the equation. But there's a bunch of stuff going on. They had like a bunch of really cool games and just like some good music as well.
Yeah, another thing that you mentioned that I found interesting just now, Tris and I were both part of Elite Bit Agents in Real Family Tracker Hours and the Family Slackers, but we aren't part of, what was it? Some sort of Kirby?
Yeah, Kirby 25 was a group that Miss Something made, where we just covered a bunch of Kirby songs for Kirby's 25th anniversary, and it was very fun. I did a Master System cover for that. Let's see, Rainbow Resort, I think it was. Yeah.
Oh, I think I heard that. That sounded so good.
And I was very, very excited because Nevin Tracker, which is what you use to make that sort of music, had literally just come out, and I wanted to use it immediately.
I'm definitely going to explore that because I've basically just done Family Tracker and I'm so ready to start another tracker.
Snevin Tracker is good because it's basically exactly like the interface of Family Tracker. I think it's actually a fork of it, I believe. So it has all the same effects, and it has you make instruments the same way. So if you use Family Tracker, then you'll be right at home. Yeah, but it's not made by JSR. It was made by Hertz Devil, who's also doing OCC. Yes, he's quite the character.
Just for context, Family Tracker is the program that most people write chiptune on currently. It's a bit of software. It's free if you want to download it. FAMI tracker. And OCC is Family Tracker, except it has some added features. Admittedly, I believe there are some problems when it comes to like dealing with files, so I tend to use it a little bit less, but it's definitely useful when you want more tools. Yeah, but I'm totally checking out this third tracker that you're talking about. I'm excited, honestly, right after this.
Oh, yeah, cool. I'm glad that other people are going to get interested in this because it's definitely sort of a niche thing. Not many people are super into this outside of maybe the homebrew scene. Well, actually, currently it only supports the SN7, which is like a native chip. And the Master System doesn't really have expansions in the same way that the Famicom does. It has an add-on, an FM add-on, which supports like YM2413. I think that's what it's called. And that's basically an FM chip. It's like VRC7, but it's way more advanced, basically.
So I'm guessing frequency modulation is what you mean?
Yes, that's what it is.
So I have a very basic understanding. Tris, do you have a good understanding, or should I just try and explain it? Okay, because what I know of it is it takes simple waves and it sort of combines them in order to expand the possibilities. Like if you were to take a saw wave and then a sine wave and put them together, it creates like a new wave because they're compiled on one another, and it kind of that's basically what FM synthesis is, based off of the terminology, basically. Is there more to it?
Here I gave a really simple breakdown of my limited understanding of FM synthesis. I would definitely recommend any listeners check out Andrew Huang's video on YouTube about frequency modulation. He does an excellent job of giving like a really simple primer on it. And then here I asked Star about his feelings about VRC7 versus the Yamaha chip that the Master System has.
Oh yeah. Like I constantly like people whenever I see people complain about like VRC7 and how few presets there are, I'm like, you should use like YM2413, you plebeians. Immediately, that's the first thing I say.
Oh, wow. These numbers, these letters.
It's similar in the sense that it has like about like 15 presets, I think, but those presets have like sub presets. So yeah, it'll have like around like 10 sub presets under like one preset. So like you have around like 100, technically around 100 different instruments you can use, including a custom instrument.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you can't like use them like all at the same time, I think. Like, let's see. Like if you were to try to use like two of the same like subset instrument, like it would work. It would cancel out one. So that's one limitation that it has. But other than that, it's like really good.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love I love interesting limitations, and especially I think I'm kind of getting interested because I don't necessarily love the just like being able to use like 15 different instruments, because I like to explore instruments that aren't necessarily just like modern or Western European. So like I would really like to dig into that.
Yeah, it's I've only toyed around with like that specific like Yamaha sound chip a little bit. My main focus is like SN7, which is I haven't said this yet, but that SN7 is not what it's actually called. It's just it's just a shortened version of the actual name, which is a bunch of random numbers that I can't remember. But yeah, that's my main focus, like SN7.
Asked a little bit more about the YM chip he was talking about.
Well, yeah, it's like something you plug in on the top of your Mark III, which is the Japanese Master System. And like not every single game actually supported it. Only certain games like Phantasy Star and Bomber Raid and games like that would actually have an FM sound chip and an additional like PSG soundtrack in case you didn't have like the FM expansion. So yeah, it was kind of interesting because with the Famicom, like you play like Castlevania 3 and you'd instantly like get like the VRC6 expansion. but you'd actually have to go out and buy the FM unit if you wanted like the FM soundtrack on your Mark III. Like SN7 is like the native sound chip if you don't have like the expansion for it. Well, like the YM expansion didn't come out in anywhere besides Japan. It was a Japan only thing.
I believe here I asked if the SN7 was the native chip to the Master System.
Yes, it is.
Great, that clears it up. I was thinking the same thing. So I did a little bit of research on the Master System before this, but mostly history because I'm not so much of a tech geek. So the SN7, I think I've seen that around, but what I've read about it is that it was a competitor with the NES. Is that correct?
Yes, and it failed miserably.
Yeah. When you say it's less versatile, I think I heard a couple songs from the Master System before we started talking. It doesn't have like, are a lot of the notes very similar sounding?
The best way to describe it is a shittier 5B. Is your audience familiar with what that is?
So we have.
Well, basically, 5B is basically just a nickname for AY, which is what the ZX Spectrum used, and also was the expansion sound chip they tacked on for the game Gimmick. If anyone is familiar with that.
Here I asked him about the ZX Spectrum and confirmed that it was, like a console similar to like the Commodore 64.
Yeah, from 1981, I think. It was European only. But it wasn't just those two things. Like AY has been used like in fucking everything. It's a very like common sound chip. Yeah, but SN7 is basically like that. But you know how in like 2A03 in a pulse channel, like I don't know what the equivalent like octave it is on the piano, but if you hit like a A with an octave of 0, it won't go any lower, right? Well, on the Master System, like it's like that, but it can only hit like an octave of 1. So as you can imagine, the bass isn't very good.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's kind of shitty.
That's a little bit of a deal breaker. I love that bass.
Yeah, it's got like 3 square waves and a noise channel. It doesn't like I believe for a Master System, Sega tacked on a DAC channel, but it's powered by the CPU. So if you use it, basically the entire game just freezes. So that's kind of shitty. Ooh. So also like it has like 4 modes of noise. Instead of like the 16 that the NES it has like a low tone up to like a high treble tone. And this is also kind of a shitty thing. You know, the high treble sound that you typically use for a hi-hat, it can't be used if you're using the 3rd channel. So if you want to use it, you basically have to have like these 1-tick hi-hats that last for only like a second. And then you can, okay. And like you can actually get lower bass if you use like it has like periodic noise, which basically creates like this sort of sawtooth like sound. But like you basically can't use the like the 3rd channel, and you can't use like other notes at the same time. So you basically are stuck with like if you use it, you can't use percussion while you're using that sort of bass. Or like 3rd channel. So yeah, it doesn't sound very good as I'm describing it. Very limited sound chip.
I mean, well, as I said, I listened to a group of different Master System sounds. It didn't sound bad. I definitely could tell that they were working with like 3. If I'm imagining this correctly, you have 3 notes and you have a noise, but is that like part of one of the note channels?
Well, the noise channel is separate. It's just if you use a periodic noise base, then you can't use like channel 3. It takes up channel 3 as well as the noise channel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not a lot of games used it, actually. Only a couple of like late release European games did.
I did hear it was released in Japan, though. Is that true or is that wrong?
The Master System was released in Japan, but it was called a Mark III.
Okay. And
I know what you're talking about. The Master System actually did get released as the Master System with the US design. It had like the FM sound chip built in. but that was like really later on in like 1987.
Oh, okay. I can kind of tell how this didn't compete very well with the NES 2A03.
Well, it wasn't like the sound chip wasn't the reason why it didn't sell well. It's because like Nintendo had exclusivity agreements with pretty much every single major third party developer, and that just like killed any sort of competition the Master System could have.
At this point, I brought up Nintendo's efforts to sort of distance themselves from gaming back in the 80s when, the gaming market in the US was not looking too hot. So, like, they intentionally made the NES look kind of like a VCR and, made the cartridges look bigger so that they would kind of be reminiscent of, like, a VHS tape.
Oh, yeah, that's why Rob exists. Fucking Rob the Robot. Well, like, once, like, Nintendo had... It was like 1986 when the Master System released in America. So at that point, Nintendo was like, had pretty much cemented itself, like brought back the game industry. So at that point, it was pretty easy, like to make a game console, but actually competing was like another story itself.
So just checking, I remember you sent me a track that you said you wanted featured. It was that in the Master System?
Yeah, I think it's a very good track. I think that it sort of gives you an idea of what like the Master System sounds like.
Cool.
So at this point, I was talking about how like I'd heard about Alex Kidd, but like didn't really know that he was featured on the Master System. And Star was able to, clear that up a little bit for us.
That's fine. That's how it is for a lot of people.
Me too, actually. Yeah, I started doing the research and I realized that like it was made by Sega. And I was like, oh, I thought Sega just made the Sonic music,
Oh yeah, and before that, Sega had another console that was released in Japan and like New Zealand and stuff called the SG-1000, and so it gets even more confusing.
New Zealand, really?
Yeah, New Zealand. They're just this random ass country. I actually don't know, but I know they didn't even bother making like specific games for that country. They just had like American text on the back of the Japanese boxes. So it was very strange. Yeah, but it's like they didn't even get like their own boxes. It's like, just take our Japanese crap. Yeah, but usually when you market things like games in other countries, you give them their own boxes, You localize them. They didn't even do that.
Hey, welcome back to A Bit of Chiptune with Cass and Triss. We have our special guest, Star.
Hey.
So we're going to diverge a little bit from the master system specifically, and I think we're going to talk about general sound and using the tools that chips generally have to offer, like pulse and noise, which we touched up upon before, and we touched up upon FM synthesis, but I think we're going to dive into just using those simple tools and making music out of it.
So PSG sound, which is like programmable sound, it is a programmable sound generator. That's what it is. Basically, the kind of sounds that you get depend upon the wave that the channels are making. And there's a bunch of different waves you can get. Like the square wave is usually what you people think of when they think of like video game music. Like it sounds all like blippy and like computer like. And there's like other sort of like sounds you can get. Like if you move like the bar, depending on like where the bar is, you can get like sort of like a trumpet sound. It's all dependent on what kind of wave it is.
That's really interesting, actually, now that I think about it, that most people associate the square wave with video game music, because when I tend to hear the square wave, like only the square wave and a bunch of square waves, I become a little bit I become suspicious, because it might be like somebody just playing a piano and it's not really like a chip or something, because like that's the sound that you usually associate with chiptune music, but it's actually like barely ever what I end up hearing when it comes to listening to other people's chiptune music on Family Tracker.
Yeah, but keep in mind a lot of sound chips during this time were literally just square waves, and I think that's where that conception comes from. Yeah, the Atari had like this. It wasn't just square waves. It had like this weird, like, sort of noise space thing. I don't know how it works, but
are we talking about can we get the Atari on Family Tracker? Just checking in, because if so, I have some experience with that. Oh, I'm thinking of Namco. Yeah.
Okay. Namco is very cool.
Do other people have experience with Namco here?
So here I bring up the Namco as a publishing company and how they worked on and produced Pac-Man.
That's interesting. I was looking, let me think. Last time I was looking for the Pac-Man music online and I wasn't able to find it. So Pac-Man, that doesn't have music?
Nope. Just waka 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 waka.
Yeah. So with my personal experience with Namco, it's like really great, but also extremely frustrating. I might play the Your Reality cover that I made on Namco recently with like the NES and Namco together. Basically, Namco, you can make your own waves, kind of like FDS, but a little bit more limited, and it sounds a little bit, I don't know how to describe it, airy? What word would you use, Star, if you've used it?
Well, I think what you're referring to is sort of the compression sound that you kind of get from it.
Yeah, probably. There's a lot of interesting features in Namco, but the thing is, when you try to write, I used the Namco in my cover of the Pokemon Center theme, and it was slightly frustrating, but also got really cool sounds out of it because of this. Whenever I would play chords with some of the Namco and I would play the lead on the rest, the chords would like chop out in a weird way. I don't know how to describe it. It like turned kind of distorted, and maybe it just switched the octave. I'm not sure what happened, but it sounded really cool. I imagine that's pretty frustrated in terms of like getting what you want, because I didn't know how to make it not do that. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I know what that is. Basically, when you have about like 3 different like area. I don't know how to describe it, but basically you have like 3 sections that you can use for instruments, and you have to like set each one, but you only have like a limited amount. I think Namco is so hard to explain. It's very complicated of how it's worked. It's a very interesting limitation.
So I just wanted to clarify that we're talking about the Namco expansion chip that is available on Family Tracker.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
I think it's worth mentioning that you can get like a ridiculous amount of channels out of Namco. You can get up to like 8. But like once you go over 4, that's when it starts getting more compressed sounding. So it sounds kind of awful when you get that many channels.
I was so excited when I first found out that you can have like 8 different trackers and that you can customize the waveform in all of them. I was like, why doesn't everybody use this? And then I actually started to use it and I realized how like horrible it started to sound when you like tried to use too many instruments at once. I think I'm going to just try to explain. I don't know. I guess the best way to explain it is that the pulse has a couple different. So the shape of a wave, and a wave is something that repeats over and over again extremely quickly. So when you repeat something fast enough, then it starts to sound like a note. And depending on what's repeating, which is the wave shape, that determines what it's going to sound like. So a violin and a guitar, a violin and a guitar can be playing the same note at the same time, but because the waveforms are different, the violin is going to sound different from the guitar, even if it's playing the same musical note. Yeah, I think Adam Neely did a really great presentation on it once. Tris, have you seen this? Yeah. I know. And what he did on stage was he took a drum beat, I believe, and he just like did a kick drum that repeated over and over again. And he sped up the kick drum to an extreme speed, and over time it first sounded like a kick drum over and over again, then it kind of sounded like some messy thing, and then it turned into more of a clear note. And that's basically like the speed you're thinking when it comes to how waves work. So I guess in that case, one kick would be the waveform.
Well, I mean, noise is noise in like PSG is normally like white noise, and it'll have like different modes. Like the NES has about 16 modes of noise, and then 5B or like AY has like this whole like mess of different possible modes you can have. It's very interesting. But yeah, that's typically what percussion is like in chiptune. It's all like noise, and it's like the hi hat will be a different mode of noise, and then the snare will be a different mode of noise, etc.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you use the word white because what noise is in terms of a waveform, as far as I understand it, is basically like all sorts of different frequencies playing all at once. So it doesn't really have a note, but it still has a sound, of course. And I like the term white noise because in terms of light, white light is also just like all sorts of different frequencies and sort of all colors at once. So it's really cool the way those mesh together. Just a fun fact. And actually, yeah, I think the same kind of thing happens on the screen, right? Because it comes like white with little black dots. That's sort of like what it would look like in terms of light. I'm just getting excited about this.
So here, Star's responding to a comment I made about randomness in noise channels.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I remember someone telling me that the NES like noise wasn't like consistent at all. Like if you were to play like like the first mode of noise once and then play it another time, like and separate them, it'd still be different. Like it's
Actually,
not consistent, the waveform.
I've also had to deal with that in Family Tracker. I don't know if you two like have had to deal with it or notice it, but like I've had a lot of cases where it's like, I want you to do the same thing. Just do it again, please.
Like, oh yeah, if you use like the second, like if you use like the second pulse on like I don't know what it's called, but basically you can get like different sound out of like the noise if you put like a pulse width effect on it. Like that's like you can definitely tell when you do that, like that it's not consistent because you get all sorts of
Yeah.
different sounds.
That's true. That's a lot less subtle. I'm talking about like normal noise, but that definitely comes up too. I've been exploring the what did you say it was? The pulse width of the noise?
Yeah, I don't think that's what it actually is, but that's what Gamma Tracker displays it as.
Yeah. Anyways, I've been playing around with that a lot. I like having a little more of a like a bleep or a ding in my music, but sometimes in the percussion it brings a little bit of flavor.
I usually use like the pulse when I want to do that.
It's kind of interesting that you bring up the random element of music because that's not something we really see these days because everything is like recorded and then like you either hear it live or you hear it recorded. And if it's recorded, it's the exact same for everybody. But there are a lot of people who, especially with technology, like there are some people who are working to like try and randomize their music. And that's a realm that I'm definitely interested in.
So Cass is responding to a question that I had about the modes of noise that Star had brought up.
I don't really have any inside understanding. What I always thought what the noise channel was doing is increasing or decreasing the likelihood of how close those bleeps are to a certain frequency. So like if you're higher, then it still plays random frequencies and like blips of those, but it tends to play the higher ones more often. At least that's what I never thought of as a filter because I would imagine something that would take probably more bits than what the NES cartridge uses.
I, on the other hand, sort of approached it from the, like music production side of a solution for that, which would be slapping on filters to white noise to sort of shape the frequencies that the noise space occupies. And I thought it was really interesting that Cass came at it from like a programming sort of scientific point of view and thought of like a coding solution. And I had thought of like, the production techniques solution. Both, I'm sure, are equally valid. But yeah, I thought it was pretty neat that we came up with different ideas about how those modes of noise could be achieved.
Probably since we're still talking about percussion, we might as well mention the triangle, because I know that the triangle is used for a lot of percussion, which is, to me at least, that was really surprising when I first learned it. I use it all the time now, but like when I first learned, wow, you can actually make hits with notes, I guess. That was something that I never speculated would be possible. I mean, I like to use the arpeggio function a lot when it comes to percussion with the noise channel and the triangle, because it kind of just makes it more dynamic, and it kind of gives it more, I don't know, a unified sound. I don't know how to say it.
I literally just use like the slide down effect in Family Tracker because I'm so fucking lazy.
More recently, I'm just using instruments. To those of you who don't use Family Tracker, the way I would think about using instruments versus effects would be, what are you going to use over and over and over again? And what do you think you might want to edit later, which in every instance of it happening? Because if you have an instrument and you change it, then it'll change every single time you use that instrument. So it can make it go a lot quicker. But a lot of other people really like to make everything sound a little different. So like every single part of the song sounds different and variable, which is a lot of work, but it can definitely bring a really great sound. Have either of you heard the Fabulous Reindeer cover of Gladian?
No.
Okay, it's a very specific one. Yeah. So the Gladian theme from Fabulous Reindeer, I'll just play it in the background, but Fabulous Reindeer uses only one instrument, and it's blank, and it's a spectacular it's really like, I was like, how do you do this? I don't know how to say this. But it sounds like you need a ton of different like instruments and all sorts of tricks, but really it's all just a lot of effects going on all at once in all these different channels, and it's crazy. So either way is perfectly valid.
That's crazy to think about. I know Deal, if you know him, he does Namco like that. He'll just have like one instrument and then just do a bunch of different effects.
Yeah, start talking about R.R. Thiel. That's R.R.Thiel, and he's an awesome chiptune artist. Go check him out.
I know he's really good. I like him.
And here I was talking about Thiel's. He made a Twitter video of a cover of Gay Bar, and it was awesome.
Oh, I think I saw that.
Oh, the Gay Bar one. Oh yeah, I saw that. That was funny.
Speaking of just like meme Family Tracker, I have this somewhere on my computer, but it's literally just yeah, I'm never gonna give you a, but it's
like a Miss Something's cover.
No, it was a different one. Miss Something is also a really great meme, because that was just a great meme. But someone else sent me the source of a Family Tracker, and it's literally that song on DCPM straight up.
Oh, I think it was DPC that did that. He does some crazy DPCM streaming.
There's no waves or anything. It's literally just DCPM.
So what Cass is talking about is the DPCM channel on Family Tracker, which was a channel that the NES used to sample instruments. So you could like input sound files, but they're usually compressed like beyond recognition.
You can make it sound higher quality if you stream it, but you can't have anything else playing. It has to be, so.
Is there a way to like film a whole song on DCPM, or do you literally have to just like cut up the entire song and like?
I think there's a way to do it in NSF or something. A friend told me about it, but I don't know the specifics of it.
Okay, because I like saw this and I died. I just was like, how did you make this? It's wonderful, but how the heck? Yeah, so I guess we're just going to talk about what it's like making the podcast so far, because this is the first time I've done something like this. I know, Tris, you have some experience with streaming. Have you ever done something like this, though?
I did work on a podcast previously. It was called Unshot, and it was produced by Evelyn Im, who is a wonderful friend of mine that I met in college. She had me on the show, and I helped her produce the show afterwards. I edited the clips together and, did some processing work, and it was a really good time. You should definitely go check it out. It's Unshot, UNSHOT, and yeah, I had a great time. But that was my only podcast experience before this.
I have never been on a podcast in my life. This is my first one.
First experience. That was me last time, and I was like half running it too, so that was crazy. I did most of the editing afterwards. Thanks for sending me your thing. It was a lot of fun, actually. I think for this episode, I'm going to try to make sure we have more continuous songs going on, because last episode we had basically just like a song come up out of nowhere in the middle of us talking sometimes. But this time I'd really like to be more of like a DJ and then just keep it going. I remember what was their name? Harmjan. I remember 3X Blast, also known as, I believe, Harmjan, who said that they're going to help me out with. So, oh yeah, Star, did you have something to say about? Because I remember when they came into the
Oh yeah, when
when
he came into the chat, I just called him out. I called him a loser, which I do all the time. Like the first thing, like I'm very good friends with him, and the first thing I do whenever I message him and I call him, I go out of my way to call him a loser. It's just something I do.
I made a comment about how like you're often meanest to the people you like the most.
Oh, totally. He has called me some very awful things, but it's all in fun, so it's okay.
Yeah. Anyways, 3X Blast, I really need to figure out which one they want me to say on the podcast. We might have him over next time. We'll see.
I actually wrote music for a game with him, and he produced it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I got
so
paid for it.
Star just said he got paid for that project, and I said something like, "Oh man, getting paid for making music is the best."
Oh, absolutely! I was very excited.
So rare.
And then here I asked Star a little bit more about the game he mentioned.
I'll tell you. I haven't signed anything, so I guess I can talk about it. But it's some game being made in the Netherlands. I think it's about cats called Mittens, and you like take care of a cat. It's kind of like Tamagotchi, but it's for your phone. That's basically what it is. And I did some chicken stuff. Yeah, it was fun. This says a lot about me, but the first thing I did when I got paid, I bought like a $50 Master System game. Such a nerd. Such a nerd. If you want to ask me just general questions, that's fine.
Yeah, you said I could ask you about games you like?
Well, you can just ask me about whatever. I don't really care.
Oh, okay. I guess, how was your morning?
Oh, it was pretty good. I slept in a little bit. But I got up at around like 10:30, which is good for me.
Nice. Yesterday, I saw The Incredibles 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I did like it. Incredibles was my childhood. That was like the movie that defined my identity a little bit. It was like that movie that kids like quote all the time and that they know every word to. That was me with The Incredibles. So I'm really happy that it was good because I enjoyed it so much.
I saw in the trailer they made a callback joke to Frozone's wife, and I was like, yes, this is all I wanted.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the joke is so great. But I'm like amazed at how good the animation is compared to like to the first Incredibles. Because like the first Incredibles kind of has like that weird thing where it kind of looks like a PS3 game, but like 3D animation has gotten like so good, it's insane. We've gotten to the point where we're animating the fabrics on like characters' clothing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. One thing I really loved about it was that it felt like the original Incredibles, despite the improvements in animation, because I didn't go back and compare them side by side, but I know that it's improved, but I also didn't feel like it was improved to an extent that it didn't feel like Incredibles anymore, which is something I definitely think that, this is a podcast about chiptune. You're never going to make something that looks as like those retro games that we've been discussing, especially in the last episode, in modern day that like looks like those. But despite that, in this new movie, the characters really looked like the Incredibles. What was I gonna say? Actually, that morning, my girlfriend and I were hanging out. We actually saw the movie with her, and that was fun. Her arm fell asleep right before the movie occurred, and I was like, "You're Elastigirl."
Did you go to one of those new movie theaters, like the super cool seats, or was it just like a standard one?
I actually went to. It's actually the opposite. I went to kind of like an old-fashioned movie theater. It actually played some like 80s retro like kind of intros, like telling you to like it told us to turn off our pagers. Like it was that
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix can go fuck itself. Give me those nice ass chairs.
I love Netflix.
Dude, I love the popcorn so much. What were you gonna say?
Just speaking of Netflix, right now I'm covering the Devilman theme. I worked on it a little bit. You know how they just came out with a new Devilman?
Oh, the new one came out? Like the new season came out?
No, not a new season, but like the
okay.
one that they made an original Devilman and then they created a new version for modern day. Yeah. Play
Dude, the animation is so fucking weird.
So true.
I couldn't get over how weird some of it was. Like I was watching like GIFs on like Twitter, and I'm like, "How is this okay?"
But the running,
like the
sequence?
girl running, like her weird ass boobs. The best.
Oh my god. Yeah. I can't play it because it's for Real Family Tracker hours and I need to wait until that's released, but I'm excited. Yeah.
I've done all of mine because I'm responsible.
It's so weird. When Lumen said that we're going to be pushing it back, I don't know why I took that as all right, now I'm going to get started for some reason. like I'm going to actually, oh yeah, here's the reason. I realized I could add a second one because I had time.
I did a second one just for the sake of having more songs so Lumen wouldn't cancel the collab. So yeah. I just did a really quick one. Like, all right, I'm going to do the one from Zillion in like 2803.
Are you doing Sailor Moon? Yeah.
Dude, I love the art style for Sailor Moon. It's so good. I watched Speed Racer. That was like my childhood anime.
Ooh, that was great. Yeah.
I'm 18. I know, I'm a little youngster.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's just the way our society and culture has gotten. We've started idolizing like nerd culture in general. I mean, just look at like Ready Player One. It's like that movie would never have come out in like in the 80s because back then being a nerd was like fucking weird. It's like you get made fun of it. But now it's like cool and hip. Like, oh yeah, you're in the nerd culture.
That's true. Actually, I have my physics teacher is such a nerd, and maybe like the nerds of the, I don't know, like the olden times, if I could say that. The nerds of the older times, they grew up and made it popular.
Golden times, the dark ages.
So I complimented Star on his like encyclopedic knowledge of Master System stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm like super into this stuff. I find it very interesting. Oh, it was like decades. Are you kidding? It was like more than a decade before I was born. 1999. I technically I'm a 90s kid, but not really.
Me too. Me too.
When the Beatles, this is interesting. I like to use this as an example whenever this comes up. But like the Beatles, like were working like with 4 tracks. So whenever they wanted like more instruments, they would have to like put 2 4 tracks together and like time it so they recorded at the same time. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, how would you do that?
Yeah, I was always wondering how they did that because I like hear these old instruments, not old. I hear these non-guitars and non-drums, and I'm like, did the Beatles play that? I'm sure they didn't. I can tell that these aren't the Beatles, but they're playing in their song.
So I'm not 100% sure what I was talking about here, but I think I was talking about live chiptune performances with like Game Boys and stuff.
Oh, I've seen that. That's crazy that they do
This
that.
is so much fun. I really want to like learn to be able to do that, but I don't think there's any way to like get it from Family Tracker into an actual gaming system.
Oh, well, there's like what do you mean?
Well, as far as I know, like is it possible to get something and make something on Family Tracker and then just upload it to like a thing that actually plays it that isn't a computer? Do you know what I mean? Like the bit that it's made for?
Yeah, like, do you mean like getting like Family Tracker songs, playing it on a Nintendo?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh yeah, you can absolutely do that. You can like put like NSFs onto like an EverDrive or whatever you call it. I think if you just play it that way, or I think it's called a Power Pack. Yeah, that's what it is. You can just play it that way.
Oh, cool. Currently, my setup is actually pretty great because my old English teacher, he'll be my English teacher next year. But anyways, an English teacher is also a DJ, and he doesn't DJ that much anymore. So he kind of just passed his stuff down to me, and I have a DJ set right now.
That's so
Yeah, it's right next to
cool.
me. So basically what I can do is I can upload the sound files from Family Tracker into a program that lets me DJ on my guitar amp. And I have a really great DJ setup basically, but
Oh my gosh, so
I've never
cool.
gotten to use it in like a venue. So that would be fun if I could ever do that. Yeah, totally. What else is I gonna, because you saw Anamanaguchi had a showing, I think just like about a little under a year ago. Definitely, yeah, under a year ago. And they had a huge crowd that came. Like I almost went, but at the time I just couldn't. But like I saw a Twitch stream of the event and it was crazy. So there's definitely a chiptune scene of some sort out there. You just have to reach them. And publicity, as you said, is wonderful but hard to get. You said DJ Cutman. I believe I was listening to his stuff a lot right before we started doing this podcast, just to like see. I think is DJ Cutman like done with This Week in Chiptune? Yeah, and we're definitely not the same thing, but like I have slightly thought of this as like, ooh, this comes right after This Week in Chiptune. It's almost like filling the void that people who are interested in chiptune are feeling right now, since there's no more This Week in Chiptune.
Oh, absolutely. I remember when I was young, like the only thing I could ever use the internet for was like Disney Flash games, YouTube poops, and then Mario 64 parodies. That was basically my life on the internet.
And even like our Discord that we created for this channel, I don't know if we should link that. It may or may not be a good idea, but I basically just invited people who like specifically wanted to like help. But if I really wanted to advertise it, then like we could get a lot of people in here, honestly. So many people were interested in this. And it wasn't just limited to the 3 groups. I had a lot of PMs. I had a lot of like other people from different groups and people in my own life who were like, whoa, this is so cool. I never knew about this. Or, hey, I've been looking for something like this. So I'm glad. Yeah, this is working out great. We already have a few people already saying that they might want to talk next week, which is exciting. But I guess all the weeks after that are pretty free. So the thing is like the first come, first serve, basically. If you know things about Chiptune and you want to talk, you know? And Star, of course, you're welcome. I had a lovely time.
Oh, thank you. I love you guys.
Which we can
Well, of
also
course,
add,
I want
add
to
in the
plug
description.
my SoundCloud, which is Star as a Lollipop. I'm also on Twitter, which is also Star as a Lollipop. And that's pretty much all I have to plug. I'm not really in any major projects besides what Lumen is going to do. So yeah, that's it.
I have one more question. Is very quick. Is your icon a lollipop?
No, it's Randar from Golvelius.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an MSX game. And it was also a Master System game.
I just can't hear. My SoundCloud and Twitter is Star as a Lollipop without thinking that's a lollipop. So I just had to ask.
Yeah.
To clarify, its Star has a lollipop.
Yeah, I am the owner of the lollipop.
Oh, cool. All right. Clarified for our listener. So,
Yeah, so
I guess it's time to wrap up.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Star.
You're welcome.
Of course.